Have you ever realized that the harder you fight to be better, the faster your soul is actually dying? You're running a race on a spiritual treadmill, sweating for a peace that never stays, unaware that your very effort is the only thing standing in the way of your breakthrough. Welcome to our journey today. This is Biblical Discernment. Have you ever woken up at 3:00 a.m. with your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird, not because of a nightmare, but because of your life? You lie there in the dark, paralyzed by the realization that despite every prayer, every self-help seminar, and every ounce of grit you've poured into being better, you are still fundamentally, tragically stuck. It is the most terrifying secret of the modern soul. The harder we run, the less ground we gain. We've been told that if we just rebuild our lives one more time, if we just bridge that spiritual gap with enough willpower, the hollow space inside will finally stay filled. But it never does. What if I told you that you are currently losing a race you were never meant to run? What if your exhaustion isn't a sign of failure, but a sign that you've been fighting a war with a weapon that doesn't work? For years, I treated my spirit like a relentless construction project, checking every box, reading every book, and praying with a desperate, frantic intensity. I was on a spiritual treadmill, moving fast, sweating through the effort, but remaining exactly where I started. I thought the problem was my lack of discipline, but the truth is far more shocking. Before we dive into the secret that will finally lift that weight off your shoulders, please subscribe to Biblical Discernment to support our mission of bringing these life-shifting truths to light. There is a radical alternative waiting for you, buried in an ancient text that flips the entire script on how we achieve strength. It starts the moment you truly grasp one word: abide. Most of us treat our connection to the divine like a battery we have to manually crank every morning just to survive. But in John 15, Jesus delivers a survival manual that describes something else entirely, a way to experience a peace that stays without the frantic forcing or the spiritual burnout. Your struggle might actually be the very obstacle standing in the way of your breakthrough. Stop the treadmill for a moment. It's time to stop trying to fix yourself and learn why everything in your life is about to shift the moment you stop fighting the wrong battle. As we step off that exhausting treadmill together, we have to confront the reality of the two very different paths we often find ourselves walking. I've spent years observing these patterns, both in my own mirror and in the tired eyes of those around me, and I've realized we usually settle into one of two profiles. Let's call the first one the striver. This person, who I was for far too long, wakes up every single morning and immediately begins doing the work. They are the masters of the checklist, the ones who read every book and pushed themselves through sheer, gritted-teeth willpower to be better, holier, and more productive. But if you look closely, you'll see the haunting truth. They are absolutely terrified. They live with a constant, cold fear that if they stop pushing for even a heartbeat, their entire world, their faith, their family, their very sanity, will shatter into 1,000 pieces. To the striver, life isn't a joy. It's an endless, heavy to-do list that never offers a day off. Then there is the abider. Their life isn't some perfect, storm-free utopia. They face the exact same workplace chaos, the same sudden tragedies, and the same mounting stress that we all do. Yet they move through the wreckage with a strange, steady calmness that feels almost supernatural. They aren't panicked, and they aren't burning out at the edges. If you asked for their secret, they wouldn't hand you a list of life hacks or a new productivity strategy. They would tell you that the difference isn't how hard they are running, it's who they are rooted in. One is trying to jumpstart their own heart with their own hands, while the other is simply plugged into the source of life itself. One is obsessed with effort, the other is focused on connection. To truly understand this, we have to go back to the moment this secret was revealed. This wasn't a casual Sunday afternoon chat. This was the upper room. The shadows were long, the air was thick with tension, and the clock was ticking toward the ultimate sacrifice. Jesus knew that in just a few hours, his disciples would face a world designed to break them. If you knew you had only minutes left with the people you loved most, you wouldn't waste time on small talk. You would give them the master key to everything. He didn't give them a hustle plan. He gave them one singular, urgent command: abide in me. He wanted us to see that surviving the storm isn't about running harder. It's about never letting go of the source. Recognizing that our survival depends entirely on this connection, we must look closer at the mechanics of the master key Jesus handed us. To make this truth inescapable, he used an illustration so simple a child can grasp it, yet so profound that I have spent my entire life trying to master its depth. I am the vine. You are the branches. When we strip away the religious jargon that often clouds our understanding, the biological reality is breathtaking. The vine is the absolute source. It is the reservoir of water, the carrier of nutrients, and the literal life force. The branch, that's you and me, is nothing more than an extension. And the fruit, the peace, the joy, and the character we so desperately crave, that is simply the inevitable result. Here is the revelatory truth that should stop you in your tracks. A branch never works to produce a grape. I want you to really think about that. Have you ever walked through a vineyard and heard a branch grunting with effort? Have you ever seen a branch stressed out, pacing back and forth, wondering if it's doing enough to make fruit happen? Of course not. The branch doesn't create life, it only receives life. It has exactly one job: stay attached. If the connection is solid, the fruit is inevitable. If you are struggling today to be good or peaceful, it's actually a diagnostic signal, a warning light on your soul's dashboard. It is a sign that you have accidentally stopped being a branch and are trying to be the vine. You are exhausting yourself trying to generate what you were only ever meant to receive. The word abide means to remain, to stay, to dwell. It is the fundamental difference between a tourist and a resident. A tourist checks in for a weekend, takes a few photos, and then leaves. So many of us treat our connection to the source like a vacation. We visit on Sunday mornings or check in when a crisis hits. But a branch cannot visit the vine. If it did, it would wither and die in hours. Trying harder to be spiritual without abiding is like polishing an unplugged light bulb until your hands bleed. No matter how much you rub, it will never glow because it is disconnected from the power. The growth you need isn't a reward for your sweat. It is the byproduct of your surrender. Stop trying to fix the branch and just return to the vine. Recognizing that our struggle is often the very thing blocking our breakthrough, we have to look at the silent tragedy of how we actually live when that connection is severed. I love the modern metaphor of the smartphone because it perfectly illustrates how we unplug from the source without even realizing it. Think about your phone for a second. The exact moment you pull that plug, it doesn't just shut off. It still looks fine, the screen stays bright, and you can still scroll, text, and watch videos. But the countdown has started. It is slowly, silently draining towards zero. That is exactly how so many of us are living our lives right now. We aren't bad people, and we haven't walked away from our values, but we've accidentally unplugged from the life force of the vine. We are running on yesterday's charge, trying to handle today's crushing stress, tomorrow's paralyzing worries, and next week's massive goals on a 12% battery. And then we wonder why we're so irritable, why we're so anxious, and why everything feels so empty even when we're doing all the right things. It's because we are trying to operate out of a source we aren't currently plugged into. A phone doesn't have to try to get power, it just has to stay on the charger. If you feel like you're running on fumes, it's time to stop trying to optimize your apps and just reconnect to the power. When you stop abiding, your soul starts sending you signals, just like the dashboard of a car. You wouldn't get angry at the low fuel light for turning on. You just realize it's time to pull over. I want you to ask yourself if you've been feeling these 4 warning lights. Are you drained, waking up tired before the day even starts? Are you anxious, feeling like everything depends entirely on your ability to hold it all together? Are you empty, achieving your goals but finding they no longer taste like success? Or are you constantly striving, working harder than ever but gaining less ground? These feelings aren't a punishment, they are a reminder from your soul saying, I wasn't built to do this alone. The pressure you feel is the result of trying to be the source when you were only ever meant to be the recipient. You don't need a better strategy, you just need to come back home. Finding your way back home isn't about a geographical location or a complex theological map. It's about a radical shift in how you navigate your busy, chaotic reality. You don't need to escape to a monastery or wait for a mountaintop experience to begin abiding. Instead, you just need to learn how to flip 3 internal switches throughout your normal, frantic day to stay connected to the power. The first is the narrative switch. Most of us spend our entire lives in a state of reaction, responding to a passive-aggressive email, a rude comment in traffic, or a terrifying news headline. When we react this way, we are operating out of our own rapidly draining battery. The flip is to pause for just a heartbeat before you let the world dictate your internal state. Instead of letting the noise define you, you anchor yourself in a single truth from the source. My personal mantra for this is simple: I am not what my stress says I am. I am who the source says I am. The second is the presence switch. We've been conditioned to think of prayer as a formal meeting we have to schedule. But a branch doesn't just visit the vine for a performance review. You stay attached to it. The flip is moving from long-distance communication to a state of constant connection. It's talking to the source as if he is right there in the room while you're scrubbing dishes, sitting in a board meeting, or stuck in a commute. Use short breath prayers, just a few silent words to acknowledge that the life force is flowing right now. Finally, there is the alignment switch. We often view obedience as a set of restrictive rules designed to keep God happy. But in the mechanics of the vine, obedience is actually about staying in the flow of power. Every time you choose the higher way over a selfish impulse, you aren't earning points. You are simply clearing the line so the power can flow without resistance. See alignment as protection and life, not restriction. When you finally stop trying and start abiding, the very atmosphere of your life begins to transform. It isn't an overnight magic trick, but a natural, beautiful growth. You don't have to tell a healthy tree to grow apples. It happens because the tree is connected to the source. Peace stops being a goal you have to force and becomes an experience that simply doesn't make sense given your circumstances. The Christian life isn't a testing ground for your endurance. It's a living connection to the one who handles everything. If you're tired of being tired, stop fixing the branch. Just come home. Stop trying and start abiding. In the midst of the relentless pressure and exhausting hustle of the modern world, the secret to finding lasting peace does not lie in trying to do more, but in learning how to abide. We often mistakenly believe that personal effort and ironclad willpower are the keys to self-improvement, but in reality, we are simply branches that were never designed to generate life or fruit on our own. When you stop straining to be the vine and return to your true position as a branch, a place where you simply receive life, the anxiety and burnout begin to fade. Life is not an endurance test. It is an urgent invitation to stay connected to an infinite source of strength. Remember, true transformation is a byproduct of surrender, not a reward for your own sweat. Core lesson and application. The central lesson here is that connection is more important than effort. Instead of focusing on fixing your own flaws, essentially trying to fix the branch, focus your energy on maintaining a continuous connection with the source, staying in the vine. How to apply it? In every stressful situation you face today, practice the presence switch. Instead of waiting for a formal time to pray, talk to God while you are working, driving, or resting. Turn every moment into an acknowledgement that you are leaning entirely on Him. A question for you: out of the 4 signs of being unplugged, drained, anxious, empty, or constantly striving, which one do you feel most strongly right now? Please share your thoughts in the comments so we can encourage and learn from one another. If this video brought value to you, don't forget to subscribe to support us as we continue to share these life-changing truths.